If you saw the video, you may be wondering, did Suzanne really have a first husband? And was he convicted of stealing documents? Nope. That was a lie. She's only had one husband, Tom Rich, who was our bartender, one of our bartenders. Where's Tom? Where's Tom? There he is. Thank you, Tom, for serving up the wet stuff. We appreciate that. So her true story today comes from something hidden in her own childhood. Will you please welcome Suzanne Adams?
When I was in the 4th grade, I finally got something that I had always wanted, and that was a big part in our class play. That year it was to be Pinocchio, and I was to be the Blue Fairy. I was very excited about this. My mother made me a blue gown that was all covered with gold stars. I learned all my lines. But about 5 days before the performance, something happened. My sister and I were getting ready for bed one evening when we heard voices rising in our parents' bedroom across the hall. And then there was a scuffle on the stairs outside of our door and feet running down the stairs. And then from the kitchen, we could hear my mother screaming, don't, stop, please. And my sister and I were stunned. Nothing like this had ever happened in our house before. There were sounds of someone being hit. Then my 13-year-old brother came to the top of the stairs, and he yelled down, "Dad, stop it right now, or I'll call the police." And my father did stop. And he called up to us that everything would be all right. But I knew that everything wasn't all right. 10 minutes later, my father came into our room and found me crying in my bed, and he sat on the edge of the bed, and he said, "You do understand, don't you, dear? She was hysterical." Well, I didn't understand, and I didn't want to understand. I just wanted it to not have happened. And I wanted that so much that I went to school the next day and I pretended it had not happened. I knew, of course, it had to be a secret. It was nothing I ever wanted to tell anybody, even myself. And that worked pretty well. I forgot all about it at school. After all, we were getting ready for this play. But when I came home, I had to remember, because nothing was right in our house. My mother slept on the couch. My parents wouldn't eat together at the dinner table. And each day, leading up to the performance, I went through the same cycle of going to school, forgetting all about it, coming home, and being reminded. And then the day of the performance came. After lunch at school, we all put on our costumes. And my teacher brushed my long strawberry blonde hair down over my shoulders, and she put this crown on top of my head that was all covered with tinsel with a little star on top, slipped this magic wand into my hand. It had a star on the end. And I just felt radiant. I thought, this is the most important day of my life. And we all walked up to the cafeteria together to face the parents who were sitting on the benches there. And I saw my mother sitting there with her red lipstick and her green dress. But then I noticed that my father wasn't sitting next to her. And I just felt something in me kind of drop away. And then after a minute, I saw him standing in the back of the cafeteria all alone. And then the reality just came crashing down on me. This make-believe that the bad thing that happened at home couldn't come to school. It hadn't worked. It wasn't make-believe, it was a lie. And I had this realization just moments before we started this performance that was all about make-believe. But a little voice in my head said, but the show must go on. I guess I'd heard that somewhere before. And I did remember my lines, and I got through the performance, but it didn't feel magical anymore. The next day, when my brother and sister and I got off the school bus, our mother was waiting in the driveway, and we could see the suitcases piled up in the back of the station wagon. She told us to get in, and we drove away, and she never went back to my father again. And of course, there's a lot more to that story. But what has stuck with me all these years is how she stuck around long enough to give me that moment on stage. That moment that I'm sure she thought for me would be magical. Thank you.